Alex, you're here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Daniel's not here. We wish him best of luck in his future endeavors. He's not leaving the show, but
He's being replaced by no. Imagine.
Mike bursts through like the Kool-Aid can. Oh yeah, and no, Daniel's he's got family stuff. He'll be around whenever we record again, because again we record once there's enough to talk about nowadays because it's the off season. It's a busy off season though. There's been a lot going on, Alex.
There has been, and there has been a lot not going on.
Hello, Nazem Kadri. How are you? That's a big one.
I'm now on board with the theory that he is a New York Islander. I've accepted it. If it's not true, it's not. Sorry. If it's not true, it's not true. But I've accepted that.
I think it was a David Pagnotta may have said some stuff today that maybe it is going to be the Islanders, but then they maybe have some in-house stuff to do. Here's the thing. There's a lot of teams that were waiting for free agents to sign, and maybe they're clearing out money. It sounds like that's also the case with PK Subban. Because if we just look, I'll just get cap friendly up here. We really should just permanently have it up at the same time. There are still teams that need to make room. Tampa, I think you kind of put an asterisk next to because of Brent Seabrook. The Caps are a little weird there because of Nick Backstrom's deal, but then it's the Panthers need to make room. The Oilers are still kind of what are we doing there. The Canucks are over the cap, and I don't know if Michael Furlan's LTI is right there. Still, hey, we want to make cap space. What's going on with JT Miller? I don't know. The Leafs are obviously there. The Penguins and that. There's Vegas still need to do stuff. So stuff needs to happen. So we're waiting for moves.
Do you know what's crazy? So with Vegas, their roster size is 16 out of 23.
Oh my God.
And they're almost $1.5 million over the cap, which means we're either going to see a lot of guys, a lot of young guys, or I don't know what this team's going to look like next year.
Or like their top Petrangelo,
6, like they're
30 minutes every night.
Literally.
What young guys do they have?
I don't know.
Just trading.
Just the guys, the young guys.
Just random guys that are like 6th-round pick. You probably need to play in the AHL, but you're coming up. They also need to sign Waugh and Colasar still, as well as Nick Hague needs to that. Oh my goodness. Who is William Riedel and why is he on a PTO? I don't know who that is. Vegas are messy, man. I don't know what's going on with them. I want to open with some stuff that's not to do with hockey, though, Alex.
Okay.
Want to talk about some F1 for a bit?
Yeah, let's do it. We haven't done it in a while. There's so much to talk about.
I didn't put it on the doc, but I'll quickly just throw it on now so I can remember. We're going to get to Alonso in a second because that was kind of funny.
That was interesting.
But first off, Sebastian Vettel, the 4-time world champion, Red Bull's former crown prince, we can call him, the youngest, I think it was the youngest F1 champion that we've seen in the sport at one time, the youngest pole sitter. He's leaving at the end of the season for greener pastures, greener than the Aston Martin car.
No, man, good for him. Like, obviously he deserves it. What he's done in F1 to me, on and off, just like, I think the personality that he brings, always good for sport in general, and what he was able to do on the track. And, those Red Bull years were great. Well, we won't talk about those Ferrari years.
We don't need to talk about Ferrari period right now.
We don't need to do that. Definitely didn't get screwed over at Ferrari. I mean, I'm sure he let's not talk about Ferrari. I'm going to just get myself upset. But yeah, no, Vettel, just great driver and one of the best of, I'd say, this generation of drivers.
I've always wanted to go back and watch his Red Bull days to really see. It's funny that he's always been very open about the environment and his beliefs and that kind of stuff. I remember when for the Canadian Grand Prix, he was sort of calling out the oil sands out west, and people weren't happy about that. But also like about that. Remember earlier in the season when there's like the jewelry regulations and Lewis was getting snippy about it.
Yeah.
And then there was the stuff about certain underpants, and then Sebastian just wore a pair over his racing suit. He's just such a funny dude. But do you know what? At his peak, what a competitor. We always think about the Mark Webber stuff and that, and those classic lines of, we were racing, I was faster, I beat him. He was a low-key bastard back in the day.
He was, and I'll always remember this picture, and I man, I wish I could have found it this morning, but the one where he's bowing down to his car. How good that car is.
Mm-hmm. Was that I think it was at the Indian Grand Prix when he won his 4th title? I think I know exactly what you mean, though. I've seen the picture. Yeah.
It's a great picture.
It's very iconic. It's very iconic. Replacing him at Aston Martin, though, is another former world champion, Mr. Fernando Alonso. This is the first day of the summer break for Formula One, by the way.
Yeah.
And then Fernando just came out and said, yeah, I'm leaving. It sounds like it's a thing of he gets a multi-year deal, and Alpine weren't willing to do that because they obviously have that. What is it? Oscar Piastri is or something his name? The former F2 champion. Piastri, who seems to be very good.
I think he was supposed to get the way I understood. I remember hearing that Alonso was going to sign a 1-year extension, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that never happened. And now he's at Aston Martin. That's an interesting one for Aston Martin, just because I guess you look at what Alonso did with Alpine in terms of, listen, that car's better than it was before he joined.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue. I wonder if Aston Martin's thinking the same thing. Also, they need someone who's a little bit better than Lance Stroll.
Fair enough. And I don't think he can get much better. Even in his I shouldn't say old age. What's Fernando, 41? He's still incredible.
Oh, I love it. I love it that he's still driving. I never want him to retire.
He's another character that the sport. Remember when he retired and Vettel, when they were like the drivers were doing their videos, and Sebastian just says goodbye until we see you back in a few years, Fernando.
Oh yeah, exactly everyone had to know. Like it was just unfortunate because I remember that during that time, obviously McLaren was, good Lord, bad, like bad.
Yes,
and it was the Honda engines. It wasn't a great time. I feel like that's why he left. Obviously that's why he left, but like, wish he stayed.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Lando, I would like to currently see Lando and Fernando. Danny Rick. We're just waiting. We're just waiting for Danny Rick to put it all together. And I don't know if he will.
I don't think he is. Just not in this car.
I think we should also give our condolences to the family of Bill Russell, the 11-time NBA champion, the Olympic gold medalist, one of like the biggest winners ever. It's been really cool seeing some of the clips of interviews he's done. And like, I saw this one thing of him talking to Kobe Bryant and that, which was really cool. But also seeing like, it's like getting a bit of a history lesson to see how sort of outspoken he was and some of the stuff that he dealt with when he was winning championships and sort of the racial abuse he got. A hell of a life and hell of an athlete too. We don't always talk about basketball, but there are some names that sort of transcend certain sports. And I think I think every kid at one point has looked up who's won the most titles in some sport. And of course you see the Richard brothers, and then maybe you think of Henri, and then you see right there 11 titles in basketball. You see Bill Russell. So I almost said hell of a career, but what I meant to say was a hell of a life.
Yeah.
On and off the court.
100%.
Hockey now?
I do feel like I need to bring up Ferrari because I need to vent some anger or some frustration.
You're not even the Ferrari fan.
No,
I feel deflated.
I need to vent some frustration out at how this, like, I've been watching this weekend. I watched a documentary about the rivalry between Niki Lauda and James Hunt, like at its prime, 1976, the year he crashed, came back, and didn't end up winning the title, but it came down to that last race day.
The Niki Lauda when he burned his face. Right? Yeah.
And there was a quote in there that I thought was really interesting, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it exact word by word, but it was essentially like, Ferrari loves you if you're winning, but if you're losing, you're gone. And that was because of Enzo Ferrari. Right, because he was still around at that when that was going on. And there was quotes from other drivers who drove for Ferrari and said the same thing. And it's like, and this isn't Charles's fault. I mean, like, listen, every driver makes mistakes, but like some of the the strategy decisions are just, what are we doing here? Like, I can't say, you can't look at the 2022 cars and say that the regulations didn't work. We had this conversation last night. The regulations worked. The difference between Red Bull and Ferrari, and then the difference between Ferrari and Mercedes, is, I'd say, closer than what it has been in the past, especially the last few years. I mean, except last year, but prior to last year, it was pretty far apart. Mercedes was very well ahead. It's just some of the decisions that have been made is just, I don't understand.
Listen, Paul Ricard, Charles binning it, yeah, that's on him. Monaco was not on him. Yesterday's race was not on Charles Leclerc, was not on Carlos Sainz, at all. They have been, Carlos had a bit of a stretch at the beginning of the season where he wasn't great, but Charles especially has just been dynamite all year. And they just the fact that you start 2-3, you have a car that looked like it was the fastest on track at one point. Mattia Binotto saying they didn't have the pace. I nearly wanted to throw my computer at the wall when you had the pace. I was rewatching the battle that Charles Leclerc had with George Russell earlier today. And first time, that's an example of how well the cars are following each other so close. Do you remember Lewis and Alonso's battle at the Hungaroring last year, and how it was great defense from Fernando, but it was like so many tracks you've seen. It's better this year with the new regs, but last year it was like you get in so close, but it's so frustrating because of the dirty air. Like it was almost like overtaking was such a hurdle. So that is fixed. You've got a fast car. You've got a hell of a driver lineup. You started the year leading the world championship, by the way. I remember Charles won that first race and it was like, this is going to be amazing. And the strategy has just been like, we talked about Fernando and Alpine. We had seen how many laps of them on the hards, saw that it didn't work. And then you thought, hey there, we're going to do this with the guy that right now we need to. In an opportunity where Max Verstappen starts the race at 10th, there's no excuse how you don't at least finish 2-3 in that race. No excuse at all. No. They were, and Mattia Binotto saying, I don't think we need to change anything. Like Spa and Monza are such important tracks, just not even just for Ferrari, especially Monza, but for Charles Leclerc. And of course, the Antoine stuff. His first win was at Spa. My favorite race of all time is when he won at Monza. Those are two races where if they bottle this again, I don't see how Mattia Binotto is back next year. And I am not like the expert at Formula One that you or our good friend Riley Fussels is, but like at some point, I feel it. It's what? I was so excited for this season because it's like the Habs were awful, last place, all this. And I thought I can enjoy Formula One. I can enjoy Charles fighting for the championship. And it's just been them bottling it. And it's so frustrating to watch.
It has been.
So frustrating. But by the way, credit to Max. You remember when, was it Turkey a couple of years ago where Lewis, I think he started 6th and he won the race, and Sebastian Vettel said Lewis had no right to win that race and he still did. It was a credit to Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Max Verstappen had no business winning that race and he still did.
Yeah.
And he spun and still won. So like credit to him, by the way. That was an exceptional performance from Max Verstappen. Yeah.
Now let's get to hockey.
Now let's get to hockey. How many people are still listening? We don't know. Sorry. But hockey. There is one free agent that's signed. It's John Klingberg.
Yes.
Alex, is it Detroit?
It's not.
Did he go back to Dallas?
No.
No. Where did he go, Alex? Tell us.
He went to Anaheim.
1 year, $7 million after switching his agency. I think he went to Newport, which was already a bad sign. So at one point in the season, I want to say it was Jeff Merrick said that the numbers, or at least that John Klingberg was looking for, was around, I think it was like the $56 million range, right? So the AAV, I'm not good at math, but that would probably at least be in the $8 million range. And we all remember how the market for defensemen blew up last year, starting with Seth Jones. What the hell happened to John Klingberg? We'll get into Anaheim's point of view in this in a second, because I actually really like it for them.
Yeah, so do I. No, I'd imagine there's a few guys who overplayed the market a bit. And now if Nazem Kadri didn't sign with the Islanders, like this theory is going around there, I'd imagine he's also one of those guys as well. I just think I think what we saw last year was just everyone just shelling out so much money, right? I think we talked about it on this show. Whereas this year, and maybe it's because of what happened last year or just because of the cap, so many teams are so much more cap strapped. There's teams who are still working with an internal cap, that the money that they thought was out there isn't necessarily out there, in my opinion. Like we were just saying before, 10 teams are over the cap right now. 10. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about teams that are still going to be making moves to clear more cap, but who's going to take on this cap, right? That's what the question comes down to. And, we look at what happened with Vegas and Carolina, and, Vegas sending Max Pacioretty to, Carolina, sorry. And, I believe it was Alan Walsh on Agent Provocateur was talking about how like Carolina was the only team in who could take Max Pacioretty's full $7 million. And that leaves Vegas with absolutely zero leverage. They didn't have any leverage to begin with, but that gave Carolina just the utmost, future considerations. That's it. You're not getting a seventh. You're not getting some nobody AHL player. Like you're getting future considerations. And I wonder if because the cap has moved a single $1 million rather than if you look at the other leagues where the cap is actually going up and it's not artificial, if how much of an impact that's been on free agents.
Mm-hmm. John Klingberg is a defenseman where I remember
right-handed
fans. Yeah, right-handed, which is even more shocking. He's a guy that everyone knows about his offensive ability and the sort of advanced numbers on him are terrific anytime he has the puck. It's just the defensive side of things is like, oh my. He's sort of like John Carlson, I think but I'd say like what's the term here? Light? Is that the term that the kids use?
John Carlson light?
Yes. Yeah. Sure. Something like that. I think you kind of say. I thought like if he was going to get a deal, I would give him around $7 million, but the sort of towards $8 million is he's just not that offensively gifted. Like he's gifted, but he's not super elite. So yeah, maybe he thought he was going to get that sort of 7-8 year deal. And I think maybe some of us thought Dallas were going to cave in with sort of how it looked like they weren't going to make the Jeff Petrie move and all that. Your cap point though, like I'm looking again at cap friendly, right? And just you look at some of the names out there, we're going to get to them, and you just look at the money available right now. And it's funny that like it doesn't like obviously the Stars are still getting their money. You know what I mean? Most of them are still getting, look at Tkachuk gets his big deal and all that. Guys like Huberdeau and that are going to get affected. Pietrangelo got his big deal right as COVID started. But like I'm just looking at some teams in their cap space right now, and it's like Montreal, $200,000. They've got some pretty big free agents next year, aka Cole Caulfield. Love to see how that's going to get done. The Blues have less than $1 million right now. And what's important here is, as I list a few more of these names, starting with St. Louis, is competitive teams are going to want to have cap space and start backing cap space to make moves at the deadline, right? Mm-hmm. So the Rangers have $1 million. The Kings have 1.5. The Hurricanes apparently have 1.8. The Sharks, well, they're not contenders. We don't know what they are. Is it $2 million? The Kraken are already down to $2.1 million. The Avs are just at 3.9, and they need to find a new center, obviously. And then you just sort of keep going down the list. The Bruins are like $4.5 million, and they're sort of at the lower half there. But they obviously need to make some moves. What the hell is going on with Bergeron and Krejci right now? And then you go the sort of names after that, and you hit like the guys who really have space. You start seeing Winnipeg aren't contenders. You see Ottawa, who obviously are going to have Josh Norris's new contract. And of course have DeBrincat to re-sign next year. Then it's the Devils, who aren't serious contenders. Calgary, who sort of have space right now because they obviously lost some pretty big players and they need to sort of bring in more help. Detroit, who aren't are better now, but aren't elite contenders. The Blackhawks, who are trying their very best to be bad. The Islanders, who are going to spend money on Kadri. The Stars, who need to re-sign some pretty big free agents we've talked about. The Ducks, who are bad. The Sabres, who are bad. And the Coyotes, who are bad and don't have an NHL arena to play in. So that's the sort of space we're in. The other teams that I didn't mention there are basically within $3 to $5 million in cap space right now. And I haven't even looked specifically at what some RFA situations are going to be like.
Oh, yeah.
So, like the Devils, for example, and we know what's going on with Jesper Bratt in that arbitration case. And man, the Devils, by the way, like 4.5. What are you doing there? But that's the word we're in right now. And there are so many guys getting squeezed. Like I always went like Sammy Vatanen, I think should still be in the NHL. And he got sort of pushed out a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And we going back to that number, the 56 million range. So I did the math. It's either a 7-year deal at $8 million or an 8-year deal at $7 million at that number. And obviously the 8 years, only Dallas could do that. And I mean, they could have done that up until I believe July 13th was the day they could hand out that 8-year deal. I think John Klingberg here got squeezed. Right. Like literally like and he's not in this class of free agents. He wasn't a middle player, but he got squeezed like one a little bit. I just don't think there was who out there was going to give him the term he was looking for at that dollar figure.
I don't know who was even, because he was probably the best D available at the start of free agency, was he not?
I believe at least, so.
Yeah, like as a UFA, I should make clear.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who were seriously interested. It's
Dallas,
who made it clear that they didn't want to give super amounts of term.
Yep.
The Hurricanes maybe, but then they made their move with Brent Burns. And with the salary retention, he's going to be a cheaper option. And I'm just trying to think. I know Jeff Merrick was talking a lot about Detroit, but they sort of made all their moves. So yeah, I don't know either who looking at them we're going to do it. I mean, maybe Philly if they got crazy and they get Tony DeAngelo because Philadelphia. But I'm looking here and I don't know who would have done it.
This deal, because as I said that, I remember when we talked about the Cirelli, the Cernak, and the Sergachev extensions. One of our points was, well, the cap's going to go up in a few years. The difference between those deals and this one is those three players in particular are just about to enter their prime. And those deals are never going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. Never, ever. I do not think those deals are ever going to be a problem. Whereas John Klingberg, who's 29, if you give him a 7-year deal, that will take him until 36.
You see, because he turns 30 next week. Or sorry,
okay.
No, in 2 weeks.
He'll be 37 by the end of that deal, and that back half can be a problem. Yes, the salary cap will jump up, but there's a lot of teams who work on an internal cap. The worst part is listen, he's not a physical defenseman, so his game won't fall off as much, but he still signs. He arguably could be and could start declining second year of the deal, maybe third, if you gave him long term. And it sounds like teams, I think it was mentioned on 32 Thoughts, no one wanted to give him super long term. I think they were talking about, I think Jeff Merrick was talking about like 2 or 3 year deals are out there. But I don't know. And I don't know who the sort of UFA defensemen are for next year. I haven't been putting too much attention to that because it's like, why would you? 12 months away.
But we'll see how, yeah, exactly. So we'll see how it shapes up there and where he goes. It's also weird that it never happened with Seattle because it feels like that was sort of a match made in heaven for how long?
That is true. This definitely screams Taylor Hall, right? Like
that's a good one.
It screams Taylor Hall, literally going to a team that's probably not going to make the playoffs next year, to get traded at the trade deadline and to sign a 4-year extension with them.
Guess how many forwards the Seattle Kraken have with AAVs $5 million or more? By the way?
6 of them.
That's 6. That's
Wow. Jeez.
I don't like that. Just a bunch of middling players. Kraken. I hate it. I hate it so much. Okay, moving on. I just want to give.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about from Anaheim's perspective.
Oh God, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Okay, so the Ducks, who are bad, they've got some young players coming in. They probably want to shelter. Yeah. I don't think Jamie Drysdale is going to play on the third pair like people are thinking. But you don't
think so?
No, he'll be like. Listen, I think they've put him in a lot of ice time. Listen, if you can shelter him a bit more, yeah, but not third pairing. I've sort of given up on the thing if you play a guy on the third line or bottom pairing because it just feels like that's what the Habs did for so long. Like, give him real minutes, right? Sure. But it just helps that John Klingberg's there. So listen, if you're the Ducks, if you retain half a salary at the deadline and you trade John Klingberg for $3.5 million to a contender,
yep,
because that's what's going to happen. They're going to get a pretty penny for that.
So yeah, they definitely will, and he's not the only guy they'll probably get a pretty penny for. But before that, so John Klingberg actually has a modified no trade clause, and it's quite interesting. So he has a no trade clause from the start of the season to January 1st, 2023. Then it turns into a 10-team no trade clause until the end of the season.
Okay. Weird.
Yeah. I guess that he won't be. I don't know. Interesting. But that's that. They also have Kevin Shattenkirk, who's up at the end of the season.
I always forget they signed him. Yeah. Since he got traded from St. Louis, it's always kind of like, so that's where Kevin Shattenkirk is now. It's like, oh yeah, he was a Ranger. What a weird guy. When the Ducks I wish Daniel was here. Does this not feel like something Bob Murray used to do, by the way? Like the Shattenkirk deal? The Ducks are rebuilding, we know that, but it just kind of feels like here's a random old guy. Like I look back at the Strome deal too. Maybe I'm just being a bit harsh, but it was just kind of Anaheim.
I agree, but what I will say, the difference between the Strome deal, the Shattenkirk deal, is that this is a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Right. With Shattenkirk, it's like you have Shattenkirk for 3 years at $3.9 million. You can't trade that after the first season, or you can't trade that at the first deadline. John Klingberg, you can trade that man at the trade deadline and get a decent penny for him because he's a damn good player.
Listen, just passing the puck to Trevor Zegras all year is going to get you some decent points too.
Literally.
That'll help. It's also just, we mentioned the right-handedness. It's spooky to me. And it really speaks to the state of the salary cap that a right-handed defenseman couldn't get paid like that of his caliber. But Eric Branson did. I just don't get that. Yeah. That's something about this league that I don't understand.
Well, you need to bring Johnny Gaudreau's best friend,
I mean, hey, I would do it if I got Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, as would I. 100%. I would take that pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to mention Bobby Ryan because I wanted to put out a thought for him. And, I think people saw what happened. And if not, you can go look at it. I don't want to bring attention to that more than I want to bring attention to the fact that he owned what happened. And the next day was very positive on Twitter and saying, this is my new day one. I know people have talked about what is the sort of the NHL assistance player program. What's the follow up for? What happens after the player? Because I completely forgot that Bobby Ryan didn't play last year. He didn't play last year. He didn't play last year. No, he obviously played the season before in Detroit.
He wasn't signed.
He was just
okay.
He didn't go anywhere to play. He was just sort of he disappeared. Right. So I just he was being very positive. He was responding to people. Relapses happen, and I just wanted to say that people support Bobby Ryan, and I'm rooting for the guy. I really am, because same. if you don't know, Bobby Ryan's life story is it feels like a novel sometimes. It feels like a story that someone wrote. A lot of ups and downs in there, and he's just a guy that I think a lot of people root for, and I think we're all on that list as well.
For sure.
I'm sure Daniel would something great to say about his time as a Duck, but like seriously, just a thought for Bobby Ryan is all I wanted to mention quickly. This is something that I don't get this, Alex. You need to explain this. The LA Kings will be building a statue for a former king.
Yeah.
A great. Wayne Gretzky has a statue there outside the Crypto Arena, because they're not the Staples Center anymore. What is it? Of hockey players, statues there include Wayne Gretzky and Luc Robitaille, by the way. Yeah. Not Marcel Dion, which weird. But joining them, statues there with Kobe Bryant, Jerry West, Wayne Gretzky, will be Dustin Brown.
Yeah.
The captain of their 2 Stanley Cup championship teams. The power forward. I don't get it. I do.
Do you know what Dustin Brown
has?
Do you know what Dustin Brown has that the 2 other hockey players don't have?
Cups with the cups with the Kings.
2 Stanley Cups with the Los Angeles Kings.
With the Kings, captain. Yeah. We're not saying that Gretzky didn't win a cup. We know that with the Kings. With the Kings. To be fair, I think every rink in California should have Wayne Gretzky statue outside of it. I think he's earned that. He's earned
in California, all of California.
Yeah,
there should be one in front of the Arizona. There should be one in front of the Arizona arena, in Tampa, in Florida, just all of the southern U.S.
Do you think the Arizona one should just be the statues, his reaction to Alexander Ovechkin's famous falling goal?
Yeah.
Well, he's like trying to hide behind a piece of paper. He's like, that was awesome.
No,
except St. Louis. He can't be outside St. Louis. We don't talk about that.
Okay, fine. No, listen, if people in LA aren't upset about it, I'm not upset about it. It's just like I can't get myself to be upset about it. I think the relationship he has with LA, with Kings fans, clearly is strong enough. And also I have to check, but he definitely is up there in terms of career with the Kings, in terms of goals. I think one of them, points, definitely games played, definitely games played, because he has 1,200 games played and they're all or almost 13. He's 4 games away from 1,300. That's
a little annoying, isn't it? Yeah. So goals, I'm just trying to find goals. I'm trying to find Dustin Brown goals. He's 6th. Yeah. Games played. He's near the only one around him right now is Anze Kopitar. Active players, assists, he's top 10. Points. No, I don't want to look up Marcel Dion's totals. I want to look at the total. Points, he's top 10. He's 7th. Penalty minutes, he's not even top 10. Wow. Well, because Marty McSorley was a king, obviously. But.
Yeah, and he's played 92 playoff games.
It's just, to me, maybe I look at it a little differently, because
you can't
outside
look at it that way.
The Bell Center are statues of Howie Merez, Guy Lafleur, Maurice Richard, and I'm forgetting, and Jean Beliveau. Maybe it's just my idea of a statue is different. It's just I was talking to Will about this, and I don't know if Will was egging me on, but he was making the championship thing. But how the hell does Marcel Dion not? Because Robitaille would have won with Detroit, so why does Robitaille have a statue and not Marcel Dion? I don't know something in the history of Marcel Dion and LA. But it's just Dustin Brown's kind of weird. Is Kopitar going to get one then? Doughty? Quick?
Nope.
You don't think Anze Kopitar gets one?
Okay, maybe Anze Kopitar.
Yeah, not Drew Doughty though? Lifetime King.
Those 2 are the only
Norris
ones.
Trophy.
I don't think Jonathan Quick.
Yeah. That's do you think Chris Kunitz ever gets a statue outside Pittsburgh? Outside no, it's not S&P. What's their arena called again? S&P's San Jose. PPG Paints, is that Pittsburgh?
That's Pittsburgh. I'm just not going to answer your question.
Chris Kunitz gets it. Just wait, he'll be a Hall of Famer eventually. Watch, right with Kevin Lowe. Dustin Brown gets a statue. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but it's not gonna ruin my day. I'm not a Kings fan. I mean, they shouldn't have won in 2014, but just Chris Kreider sort of stopped that. But it's just me. Also, Patrick Marleau's number will be retired by the San Jose Sharks next year. Did we talk about on the show if he's a Hall of Famer?
I believe so. We did. I think we all agreed that he is. I don't remember.
Is he first ballot though?
Probably not.
I think we had that discussion too. Like 500 plus goals. Obviously, most games played. I don't know if he has an MVP. I don't think he has an MVP.
I don't think he does. I'm going to double check. I'm going to double check, but I don't think he has. He has no individual awards.
That's tough.
But he's definitely going to make it.
Yeah, he shouldn't be outside for too long. But I think he's ahead of Ryan Getzlaf, for example. You know what I mean? I think he's above him in the pecking order.
Probably. And I guess we still don't know about Joe Thornton, but what I think would be really, really cool is if they retired Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton's number on the same night.
So what opponents are they facing for those nights, would you say? Where would you?
I don't know who Patrick.
Marleau, I just realized. We could have looked at Patrick Marleau.
Let me go double check. In February, did they pick a day?
I feel like they did. Hold on, Patrick Marleau. Because I just realized they were both Leafs.
So February 24th, February 25th. Let me find. Have they released the schedule? Yes, they have.
Yes.
Have they released the schedule?
I went to type in Patrick Marleau and I only put Patrick and the first name came up was Patrick Star.
It's interestingly enough, it is against the Chicago Blackhawks.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Because wasn't Luongo's a Vancouver, Florida game? I'm trying to think I think it should be a special sort of team. I don't think you're going to do it against Pittsburgh. Well, obviously we know now who it's against, but I would do it against Toronto because that was a sort of team that I think he meant a lot to.
Patrick Marleau?
Yes. Obviously nowhere near the extent of the San Jose Sharks, but I think it would be cool to have Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner around for it.
Yeah. I'm sure if they're not playing, they'll be there.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Because he's basically their other kids.
I'd have to double check the Leaf schedule. But,
yeah. Same with, I don't know what you would do for Joe Thornton, Boston. That'd be pretty funny.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you do Boston. I think Boston would be pretty funny. And then it's
Florida.
And they bring the owner of the strip club they went to. Allegedly. But hey, congrats to Patrick Marleau. I don't know off the top of my head if he's the first. No, I would imagine maybe Doug Wilson has his number retired.
No, I believe he's the first number retired.
Really? Okay, yeah. Good for him.
I think they were talking about it on SDP, and they had the same. They were trying to figure out the same thing, and I believe they concluded he is the first number to be retired.
That's a good number. That's a good player to do it. That's a good player to have. Yeah. He was good, man. He was a really good player. It's just there's more and more guys retiring that just never got a chip, and it's such a shame. And he's I'm happy Brayden Holtby got his, and I think we're just kind of waiting for that to be official, really. But yeah, we talked about I think we can quickly do a little thing to do with Hockey Canada, I think, before we talk about the Habs and sort of looking at the rest of the UFAs.
Sure.
Alex, are you having trouble keeping up with everything to do with Hockey Canada? Because I am.
Yeah, because there's so much.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. In the last week, we had the statement from the women's national team, who were very vocal about wanting to really be involved to see what the truth is here, what's going on. Obviously, they in their statement put out something about, made sure to mention, maybe don't take away funding because of what it's doing to the games. I personally don't think you needed to have it in that same statement. I won't lie. That's just my opinion, though. I thought it took a little bit away from their first part of the statement. That's just me, though. We've had Sheldon Kennedy, and we know the role he's had and his stuff with the consent programs, basically calling for the removal of Scott Smith and others from running Hockey Canada. In these new things of hearings with the government, the same thing's been said. And it seems to be that the Hockey Canada personnel are basically saying, we want to be involved here. We don't see why we should be gone. More details we'll get to in a second, including some stuff about past settlements that Hockey Canada has had. But we've talked about the idea of Hockey Canada maybe rebranding or existing in a different form in the future. I don't know how any of those guys can be around by the end of this. I don't know who has the authority to pressure them out, but I don't see, first off, how you can have the sort of frame of mind to think I should still be here. But
I'm very interested, and I want to understand why they think they should still be around, because so there's the new CEO, I believe, coming in, which is Scott Smith. He's been around Hockey Canada for over 20 years, not in the same role, but he's been up there for many, many, many years. What have you done? Great. You have a plan. Cool. I'm sure there's been lots of plans. Why are you now the one that should be able to implement it? Mm-hmm. Because you said so? Because you've given us, and by us, I mean the public, no indication that you're going to do a good job, because it's been like this for quite some time. So what is it?
So I want to say that they've been using the former National Equity Fund. I think Rick West had said going back to 1989 at least, and around it was around $6.8 million. That was to the Graham James stuff, and that of course was the coach who abused Sheldon Kennedy. So you talk about guys being, I don't know if he was around in 89, but he has been part and in the culture. And again, I think they've talked about at least 12 different claims, and this is also from Rick Westhead, that have sort of been around. And I think it's Hockey Canada says there have been 12 uninsured abuse claims settled worth a collective $1.3 million. One perpetrator was connected to 4 of those claims. And so first off, by the way, okay, one abuse claim. Okay. All right. Okay. Gives you enough sort of situation. Maybe you should watch that individual. Second time, if there was any sort of, you would think with certain situations in life, you don't deserve a second chance. Sort of sexual violence is probably one of them. A second settlement. Okay. I don't know how you give someone a second chance after sort of that. 3 is just, I don't know how you don't blacklist them. 4. In what world after that comes out? Over $1 million, 4 incidents with 1 perpetrator. When that comes out, Alex, that's when I'm definitely like, everyone involved scorch earth. When that deal comes out, how do you with a straight face think I should still be involved in this? That's what gets me. It's just like 4. And I believe Jeff Merrick had the name of exactly who the perpetrator was. He was an Ottawa coach. I don't know, like Sens, or was like an Ottawa-based coach. I'm going to try and find it because people were like, who the hell is this person? It's like, look, you want this job. You let someone get away with this 4 times. 4.
You try find it, because I got some things I'd say to get off my chest. I would be the best way to put it. To me, and I think we talked about, I talked about this last episode, where I think we're extremely focused on the individual cases, which we should be, but we need to talk more about the fact that there has been a lack of accountability for years and years to come. This isn't about changing hockey culture. This idea that I think that's the extremely lazy argument, first off, to say you can't change hockey culture. Like, this isn't hockey culture. This is committing a crime. So unless you're telling me that hockey culture is committing crimes, then like, is that the conversation we're going to have? Because I don't think that's the conversation that's not the conversation people want to have. Mm-hmm. it's about holding people accountable. Why is it that when it comes to the Olympics, when it comes to the World Juniors, when it comes to the World Championships, it's such a prestigious thing to wear your country's jersey? So, okay. So you want the best people in there. You want to hold people accountable. If it means something, I'm not going to get Joe Schmo on the street to wear that jersey if it's so damn prestigious. It's about holding people accountable for committing a crime. Never forget, they're playing a game. We're talking about them playing a game. That doesn't change anything. They committed a crime. Did they or did they not commit a crime? It's so simple. It really comes down to, did they or did they not commit a crime? Did they commit a crime? If the answer is yes, hold them accountable. Why is that the hardest thing to understand here? It needs to be transparent, because clearly we can't not be transparent, because when we're not transparent, we don't hold people accountable. That's not just in sports, that's in life. That's in every section of life. Politics at its finest. Funny enough, this is partially funded by politicians. We need to hold people accountable. How do you do it 4 times and still have the opportunity to put on that jersey? I'd be ashamed.
I can't find it on. I'm gonna just try and look up like Jeff Merrick on Twitter and see if somebody. I know there were some Twitter accounts like I think it's like NHL Watcher or someone who normally transcribes them, and I'm gonna try and find it. But
that's fine.
For the love of God, it's bothering me.
Yeah, that's fine.
And if not, by the way, listen to 32 Thoughts, the newest episode, and it's the last segment. Normally they put in timestamps on that. Oh man, you should be able to find it. But yeah.
We need to do a better job at holding people accountable. This idea that why we can't hold people accountable, I don't like. It's extremely frustrating having to read this stuff and then have to deal with, well, I mean, it's hockey culture. Okay, so you're now telling me that hockey culture is part of hockey culture is committing a crime. Is this what we're having the discussion now? Is this the discussion we're actually having? Because if it is, that's ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing I've probably ever heard. Genuinely. Mm-hmm. How does that make sense? How is it that that's part of hockey culture, but there's a lack of accountability? So because it's part of the culture, that means we can't hold people accountable. Well, then damn, we got some real rough things that are about to happen in our world, because we're just it's not going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. I know at one point I looked up the guy, but my search history is just full of a lot of like of Elden Ring and YouTube stuff, so I can't quite pin it down. But again, people listen to 32. The guy, I know people really wanted to know who the hell is this one? Who is this person? Like it's just simple stuff. I
bet they already know, because I assume if they listen to this, they listen to 32 Thoughts.
That's a very, very good point, actually. Again, I think when it comes to the 2003 incident, we're still waiting on details. The Daryl Kate stuff, which isn't related to Hockey Canada, but is a pretty important story, we're still waiting on that as well. Am I forgetting anything, Alex? I don't think I am.
No, can I ask? And they brought it up on SDP, and I think that's a really interesting point. Where's Bob Nicholson?
Yeah, that's a very good story. That's a very, very good question, because he and we've talked about this, is very influential, and I wouldn't be surprised if like the Ken Holland connection he had in the past. You know, it goes back to Hockey Canada. We've used the term boys club before. So like he definitely knows what's been going on. Bob Nicholson. Well, obviously because he ran Hockey Canada for ages. But that's a very good point. It's a very good question. And I would like the answer to that too. He should be questioned. I don't know if he's been summoned, because wasn't there a thing of subpoenas were going to start being sent out. But he's got to be one of the names or one of the summons there, I'd imagine. That's too big a name to miss. That's too big a name. Anything else though? Anything else?
No.
All right. Shout out to again all the normal reporters who are doing such a good job with this. Katie Stern, Rick Westhead, Dan Robson, Emily Sadler. I'm not mentioning everyone, but
Ian Mendez.
Yes, they're all doing a bang up job with this. Bang up job. Before we look at the remaining UFAs, the Leafs lose a member of their organization to the Montreal Canadiens.
Wait, was he with the Leafs?
So apparently, this is what I saw. So Stefan Robida apparently between 2015 and 2021 was assistant director of player development with the Leafs or in sort of department, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, so Stefan Robida, Stefan, he as quiet as he was in the front office as he was as a Toronto Maple Leaf as a player. Stefan Robida from Robida Island to the island of Montreal, and former Montreal Canadian himself. Stefan Robida is the new assistant coach, replacing Luke Richardson. Apparently, he was coaching midget. And now he fits right in with the Habs' new strategy of hiring. I shouldn't say that, of just hiring, bringing in experience and bringing in minor league hockey coaches.
Yeah. Is he running their defense?
They haven't really officially, but I would assume so. Yes.
I think you should run their power play.
I mean, Alex Burrows. Do something new. Just pass it to Caulfield and we're good. And we'll talk about that in a second, won't we, Mr. Dom Ducharme? But yeah, Stefan Robida, apparently there's a lot of influence with him with learning and sort of teaching in that. I saw this thing of apparently guys are going to gravitate to him because he's like sponges. I guess that's the kind of guy they need. Listen, I didn't watch Stefan Robida as a Hab a little long ago. I saw this really funny too. It was like the average age of the Habs coaching staff is probably younger than the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. But he wasn't the hire I was expecting. No. I was thinking maybe like they were going to go like Dan Boyle or something, but I did not expect Stefan Robida from Sherbrooke. He's French.
I got to watch 52 games of Stefan Robida actually, and then he disappeared.
Yeah, and then he legit just disappeared. But listen, if Marty St. Louis thinks he's as long as it's a guy who can teach those young guys, I think you're fine. It's just weird that they're going with such an inexperienced bench. It's refreshing that it's not some guy who was probably been fired 2 or 3 times and needs a job.
Is Michel Therrien out of a job, or is he still?
God help me, all that coming up again. I really those were dark days, man. I've never been so upset with the Habs winning divisions as I was in the Therrien days because he was just such a fraud. He was such a bad and Patrick bringing up those old clips. I loved that series 24CH. I've watched some of those clips a ton of times before. And some of those Terry and that specific clip with PK, I remember so vividly. So when he brought it, before I even watched the video, I saw him with the clip and I was like, there it is. And a big thing with Robida too is apparently that he's a communicator. So good. Cool. Stefan Robida. I didn't even know he was French until he got hired.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. I thought he was like Finnish.
Oh my God. No.
I don't. He was the Leaf. I was kind of like, The only thing I knew about Stefan Robida was Robida Island for the longest time. Yeah. I didn't know he had led this like super long career because it was Stefan Robida. He was a meme for years. Now he's an assistant coach of the Montreal Canadiens. Just a little shocking. Another new coach. But let's talk about an old one, Alex.
Oh my God.
So Dominique Ducharme, the former head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. Remember that? It was a long time. It wasn't even that long ago. Less than a year ago. Dominique Ducharme spoke to The Athletic, specifically a great little piece from Marc-Antoine Gaudin. Basically sort of saying he wasn't told the plan by Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes to lose as many games as possible and to play the young players, as Dom Ducharme put it here. It's a very interesting article. There is a bit of sympathy for him at the end because it talks about some of the stuff with his daughter and that which I think you should definitely read. Stuff about Cole Caulfield and that, but I just want to read a little bit here, Alex, from this article. And
Man, I got like 3 paragraphs. So yeah, we got some stuff to talk about.
Quote, the fact he was hooked on Cedric Paquette for so long, for example, or that he decided one day that it would be better to play Jake Evans at right wing on the first line so that Jonathan Drouin could play at center for the first time in years. Alex, I was reading this article and I had flashbacks throughout the whole of the year, right? Like this next part. On December 14th, 2021 in Pittsburgh, for example, the infamous night when Jeff Petrie openly questioned the Canadiens' lack of structure. Ducharme said after yet another loss that goaltender Jake Allen was playing too often. It's a strange comment coming from a head coach who has full control of which goalie plays on any given night. But Allen was the best goalie available, the one who gave the team the best chance to win, and Ducharme was sticking to the hope that Allen would help him pick up some points in the standings here and there. Indefensible, perhaps, but we have a better understanding today of why the Canadiens' former head coach decided to cling to that hope. In his first one-on-one interview since being fired by the Canadiens last February, Ducharme said he never had a discussion with Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes regarding how he should process in managing the season after a catastrophic start. The two new heads of the organization never sent that message, and Ducharme says he didn't feel he had the authority to decide on his own that winning games was no longer important. So before we keep going, so if you never had a meeting and you didn't know the direction they wanted, how did you not have the authority to make decisions? Because then would they not have told you you can and can't do? You know what I mean? Doesn't that not make sense?
Also, why don't you ask? Let's start with, you started what? With one of the worst records in Montreal Canadiens history.
He had 8 wins.
8 wins.
In half the year.
How is that acceptable?
You see,
how is that? Oh, sorry. I got so angry reading this article because I'm like, what are you taught? Like, and listen, I don't want to, I'm not crapping on the fact that this article is out. I think articles like the Jonathan Toews one that came out last week, I think that's what we need. That's how we have conversations.
Oh yeah.
But I just don't understand. Number one, why didn't you just ask? Why didn't you have a meeting? Why didn't you say, hey, what's the plan here? Because he makes a point. If he didn't have a meeting, he doesn't know the direction. That's fine. But you're an NHL head coach. Ask.
A coach's thing is here's the problem too is, listen, it's not, he makes a sort of distinction between playing the young players and trying to win. He separates this two different things, right? Why were the Canadiens winning games under Marty St. Louis, Alex? Why would you say? Because
he was utilizing his players properly.
So those young players, will make a distinction here. You could probably say are Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, probably?
Yes.
Okay, listen. So let's say like Nick Suzuki obviously was still being used a ton. Let's just say that, but he had a lot more sort of two-way responsibility. Like, Christian Dvorak under Marty St. Louis, I think, took a lot more of the defensive responsibility away. Cole Caulfield's the big one, right? When Caulfield, who, as this article reminds me, and I had forgotten about this, Alex Belzile was getting more ice time than Cole Caulfield at points. I remember him playing great games and getting less than 50 minutes of ice time. I think there was a game where Ryan Poehling had a pair of goals and played 11 minutes, right? It isn't just about losing games and playing young players, because what he's doing there is technically contradicting himself later, because he sort of then says or insinuates that's what the Canadiens did for the rest of the year, right?
They didn't.
Now, let's point out there that Marty St. Louis had more wins, right? And he played those quote-unquote young players who were overall the best players on the team. You can't tell me that Alex Belzile is a more impact player at the NHL than Cole Caulfield is.
Can I read the rest of that?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just, because I actually, that was one of the paragraphs I wanted to read because I didn't understand the point that was trying to be made here. So the fact that this is the paragraph from was it Marc-Antoine Gaudin, right? Yes. The fact that Alex Belzile was given more ice time than Cole Caulfield in an NHL game is another way to look at how Ducharme navigated the waters. On the one hand, you have an AHL veteran who works extremely hard. On the other, you have an NHL rookie who looks completely disoriented. That decision could help the Canadiens on a given night, but in a bigger picture perspective, if the priority was to develop Caulfield properly, more so than winning games in a lost season, the context for making those decisions should have been different. What does that mean? Playing Cole Caulfield is much better than Alex Belzile. Fact or
yeah. Fact. When he was in college, he was better than Alex Belzile.
Right. So because Alex Belzile is going to work harder, you're going to play him more. That's how we got in the situation in this first place. That's how. Why is Cedric? You're right. Why was Cedric Paquette? Why was he glued to Cedric Paquette? Maybe he worked harder than Jake Evans. Maybe. I don't know. But also this idea that losing with young guys is like this, like it's making out to seem like that was the only solution to this is blatantly wrong. And there's proof over years, cough Buffalo, cough Edmonton before McDavid and Draisaitl were beasts, that's stunts development.
Here's sort of the stuff that you got to think of, right? If you were trying to win games, right? Explain this to me. What was something I was screaming about most of the first half of the season? I was a few things, but I'm just wondering if you're going to get where I'm going with this. What was one of the biggest problems with the Canadiens when it came to offensive strategies? Do you remember? Mainly to do with the power play, to jog your memory.
Was it Jeff Petrie just shooting or not going to Caulfield? I don't remember. There was lots of them. Where do you want to start?
So first off, the lack of Caulfield on regular power play time, to be honest, overall. Remember, there were times, I remember that famous game that I was at against Colorado when the jersey was thrown off the ice, right? Yeah. That was the game where there was a 5-on-3 and Caulfield wasn't used.
Yes, I remember that.
That's the type that is in a kid with that shot. You talk about if he didn't have confidence, that's on the coach, by the way, not being able to get the best out of his players. That weapon wasn't being used at the best advantage. Jeff Petrie, who was on the power play, it took him a while, even under Marty St. Louis, to get that chance back. But he was on that first, and could you say, Alex Burrows runs the power play? Yes, but as a head coach, you should be the one to eventually step in and say, guys, this isn't working. Not to mention just how anemic special teams were the whole of, the first half of the year and a little bit overall, to be honest, until Caulfield started getting going on the power play especially. But you telling me that was the best chance he had to win? Was keeping Petrie up there, having Josh Anderson at points being in that sort of circle where Caulfield was at one point, and instead having him Anderson down low the fight for puck battles. You had Caulfield down there. The usage overall of a lot of players was stunning. Here's something I just remembered, Alex. You're not going to believe this when we look back at the playoffs. At one point during the year, do you know who was scratched for the Montreal Canadiens?
Wasn't Cole Caulfield scratched?
Oh yeah, I don't even remember if he specifically was, but Arturi Lehkonen,
yes,
spent time scratched. Arturi Lehkonen, who let's not forget back-to-back years, conference final winning goals, had the Stanley Cup winning goal, was spent time on the first power play unit for Colorado, time on the top line there. That guy who fetched them Justin Barron in a second. I'll remind everyone, that guy was scratched under Dom Ducharme because he wasn't producing at points. It's his defensive game is great. So you give more benefits to other players over Arturi Lehkonen? Those were some of the plays that Mr. Dom Ducharme pulled off here. And listen, he talks a lot about Caulfield in this and sort of the slump and all that. But man, you weren't playing him. what benefit does a player like Caulfield with that skill set get in the fourth line? If it doesn't fit your style, then man, fix your style, because you saw what he did in the playoffs. And if you couldn't replicate that's on you. You are responsible for that. You are the teacher here. There is no excuse that he can succeed the way he did under Marty St. Louis. And then over. It just doesn't make sense to me. That's completely on you.
Can we also talk about what he said, like the things he talked about when they got into Martin St. Louis and that change?
Go ahead. Do you want to read?
I have a quote here.
Yes, please.
That to me, there's two in particular, but let's talk about this one first. That it was just mind-boggling reading this. Like, what does this mean? So the quote is, "We're always seen as the team that went to the Stanley Cup final and that couldn't win." First off, that's not true. That's not true. I don't want to bash Montreal, but let's go back to that season. The fate of them being in the playoffs wasn't up to them. At the end of the season, the Calgary Flames had to win games to get into the playoffs. They didn't. They were, no offense to Montreal, they were not a team that made it to the Stanley Cup final. And we were all like, wow, they couldn't win. We were like, holy crap, they made it to the Stanley Cup finals. That was literally what we were talking about on this podcast. Not, oh man, I can't believe Montreal didn't win. That's what we're talking about right now with Tampa Bay, is that they made it to the Stanley Cup final for a third year in a row and couldn't win. That's not what this was, Dom. And then he goes, the coaching change sent a message to the fans and the players that, quote, "we're rebuilding. We're going to put our faith in the young players." The result was no longer important. Martin could talk about moral victories. Me, if I talked to moral victories, I would get ripped. Yeah, because you weren't using the players properly, Dom. Like, my God.
Like, can we just talk about also that's wrong? You think anyone at the back half of the season in Montreal was happy they were winning games? Do you remember the fan base after they beat the Rangers in like their second last game? They wanted to kill Jeff Petrie and Mike Hoffman. The moral victories of Caulfield playing well were the only things the fan base had left, because you didn't win a game for the first 2 weeks. They lost the season in 2 weeks under him. No one gave a crap about wins after that, Dom. What if you talked about Rick? Dom, you never even said anything to the media. Remember when he was more about, I don't want to give any YouTube clips? What are you talking about there? You didn't say anything. You didn't give any sort of like projection in the media of like, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is the thing. We want to do this. It's a process. Marty St. Louis could explain his actions when you couldn't do anything.
It was the lack of explanation for the moves that you made that to the public made zero sense. That's what when Martin St. Louis made a decision, he was able to explain it. He was willing to explain it. There was none of that. Can I get, and I think that's a great point to get me to my next quote, because this one was immense to me that this was said out loud. St. Louis arrived behind the Canadiens bench, was praised for his communication skills, his innovative ideas, his excellent reputation around the league, and he immediately became the flavor of the month. Quote, "They were saying the same things about me last year," Ducharme said. "Things change fast in hockey, positively or negatively. I parked my car at the Bell Center before a trip to Ottawa and Winnipeg, and when I came back to get it, I was the head coach of the Canadiens. 5 months later, we were in the Stanley Cup final, and 6 months after that, we went through a perfect storm. It changes fast." Adam, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who was calling Dom Ducharme? Who was praising Dom Ducharme for his communication skills, his innovative ideas? Because I remember when we got to the end of that shortened season, the Canadian division season, that he was about the same record as Claude Julien, who had gotten fired.
So I think he means when he was first hired, which I remember saying what was said about him was that he was a little outside the box. Now, which is okay. At first, I drank the Kool-Aid too, as Patrick said. We all did. Now, the difference there is if you compare Dom Ducharme and Marty St. Louis, let's ignore the exact record. Okay, there were more wins, but the Canadiens obviously still finished last. Yeah, let's be there. the results and the way they were playing and the confidence and the quotes coming out of the room and all that, this is all I think you need to sort of talk about the idea of being a good communicator, Alex, right? And just sort of how full of crap that is. Or what Dom Ducharme is saying, right? Is look at the speech Marty St. Louis gave at the draft and the quotes coming about how the Canadians held their private combine and the things being said about Marty St. Louis, the stuff coming about when he first got to the team and they're having fun and all this great stuff. No one ever said that about Dom Ducharme. You know what I mean? That's where I think he's being very selective there because there is evidence to show what Marty St. Louis has done so far and the positivity. And when meanwhile, it was just, hey, Jeff Petrie thinks we're a complete mess. Oh, the only thing that we really heard was, we've dealt with it internally and nothing changed. So I just think he's so full of crap there. It just, there's 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 there, Dom. You're just that's a delusional statement there. That's just completely ignoring and taking away a lot of context. Unless he's just trying to do the thing of, let's see how Marty's going to do at the end of this year and what people say about him. Like, that's completely different. But what he's saying there, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think that's totally bullcrap to throw out there.
When I watched Montreal play during that portion past from Claude Julien's firing to the Stanley Cup final, and when I look at his start of last season, I look at a team that looks extremely different than what it was under Martin St. Louis. They looked excited to be there. They didn't look dejected. Under Dom Ducharme, just after Claude Julien, they played the exact same way. They looked the exact same as they did under Claude Julien. When they came back from that summer, and I understand the injuries, the COVID. I'm not denying that. But you cannot tell me that the difference between Dom Ducharme, the players under Dom Ducharme and the players under Martin St. Louis, they're so different in every effect, in the way they play, in the way they talk, in the way their body language. They look so much happier. The moral victories this year for the Montreal Canadiens, at least when I watched them play under Martin St. Louis, I came out saying, wow, this guy, and this guy is going to be a hell of a player now, and they're going to be a hell of a player in the future. But under Dom Ducharme, it's not because I didn't like Dom Ducharme. I don't like the Montreal Canadiens. If you haven't noticed, I have no empathy or sympathy for Dom Ducharme or Martin St. Louis or anybody in that organization, frankly. I'm looking at it from an outside perspective and saying there's a massive difference between what they look like under Dom Ducharme and Martin St. Louis. But for the most part, the players were the same, especially this season.
Listen, there is this one more snippet I wanted to mention.
Let's do it.
The fact he was kept in the dark by new management led Dom Ducharme to deduce that his days coaching the Canadiens were numbered. I think, I think when Marc Bergevin was gone, he said the decision was already made, which I think we all kind of thought, yeah, he's going to be gone by the end of the season.
Did he pull that from Mike Babcock?
I'll also remind you, Alex, remember how they didn't fire Dom Ducharme right away?
Yes.
And they kept him for a couple months afterwards? So
yeah.
That's not right, Dom. I thought they were going to get rid of him right away. Like, I thought he was doing permanent damage. By the way, another thing, do you remember when the Canadiens had the back-to-back games or whatever? And there was a game against the Ottawa Senators and the other one was against the Leafs. And he started Caden Primo against the Leafs instead of the Sens. When his first win, his first win was against the Sens. Not to mention, you just look at the state the Sens were in last year compared to the Leafs, and he put Primo against the Leafs. How is that the best option? I'm assuming Allen was probably hurt, so it was probably him or Montembeault, but start Montembeault, damn it. I don't care if he had to call up, was Primo pulled that game for McNiven? But it's still like why against the Leafs? What were you thinking? Matthews scored 60.
When Primo started his first game against Colorado, was that under Claude Julien?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
He played well that game.
Yeah, he did. He did. It was just,
either.
it's the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So it was, but yeah, that was, it was against the Avs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the bad Avs. They were on the way up. That was like the start of everything for Colorado. And it was like, here we go. And then, yeah, he lost. But yeah, and then remember, his first one was against like the Sens, like I think like the next year or something. I remember because Brady Tkachuk took the puck and Carey Price was like, yeah, you give that to me now. Love it. But it's just what a mess. What a complete mess. But hey, he's at home cashing his $1 million checks every year because he's getting paid. I think it's like $1.5 million.
Good for him.
Okay. Let's look at the remaining UFAs before we go.
Okay.
And then we can sort of just, I don't know, like thing where they might be going. PK Subban. Apparently, I think it's Don Meehan. Wait. I don't want to get him mixed up by the real life guy because there's a real, like, I think Don Meehan's actually like the dude who was like a complete fraud or something. Don Meehan. No, it is Don Meehan. Okay, never mind.
Who are you thinking of?
There's this other dude. It's a Netflix show based on like this real life dude. It's something. His name's something Meehan.
Oh.
And it's a whole thing. He's like this big scammer and like it's a whole thing. But no, it's Don Meehan's his agent. Sort of alluded to the point that maybe he was waiting on teams to sort of make moves. Apparently the Canadians are not one of the teams interested, so that's a shame.
Nah.
But where do you see PK ending up?
That's an interesting question. Like,
did sort of insinuate that PK sort of has earned the right to be more selective. So I take that as he wants to go to a contender.
Sure, I guess. Okay. It would be absolutely ridiculous. And I guess to this sounds like they want a little bit of money, but what if he goes to Tampa or if he goes to Florida? Florida, I think Florida definitely makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Based on, we were talking about that last week with Baumgartner, but my God, if he went to Tampa, I'd cry.
I don't think I would. I would go to those games just to boo him for doing it. I would. I would. Cry. I was going to say, depending on how much they like Braden Schneider, maybe the Rangers.
Ooh.
I don't think that would be too awful, would it? I mean, I think
probably not though. Well, we'll have to ask Mike.
Yeah, and ask him. I still think Seattle should try and take a swing no matter what, just to have the PK Subban brand there. Also, the Sens need a right D. Probably want a more short option, a younger option, but still.
They need to get rid of one in particular.
Zaitsev?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've been reading, at least. That's what the Sens Twitter community has been saying. So
hey, we could see. I mean, or maybe Minnesota, because they always need guys who are on the cheap because they have no money
and old.
Yeah, they do love their old guys there. They do love,
especially on the back end.
Phil Kessel. I would really like Carolina to do that.
That's a really good show, and I think that's a market like Phil doesn't. And obviously, listen, man. If you want to come back to Toronto, I'd take him in an absolute heartbeat. Like, imagine playing on the site, him playing on the second line. Like how ridiculous
Can you just be. A line with him and Nylander would get ripped. Like Steve Simmons would have a heyday with it. I kind of want that. Tavares and Nylander would be the most about line in Toronto.
Stop. Honestly, God. But again, like that, Carolina's a good show. Like I think he's more inclined to go to a market where he's pretty much not going to be talked about. I think, and that's because that's what he likes. And I think Carolina's like that too. And again, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Florida comes calling, but again, that depends on what that contract looks like, right? Like, what does a Phil Kessel contract look like?
I don't imagine it should be too much. He's made his money. You know what? Maybe instead they use money to get Calvin DeHaan. You want to know why I bring that up? Because I don't know if they brought in a D to replace Ian Cole yet. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. Okay, I changed my answer. The Calgary flight. Actually, no, he won't go to Calgary.
That would
That's
be
too much.
Maybe then Goudreau got crap from me McIntyre.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna. Or he could always go back to Arizona again. They still need to hit the cap floor. So
yeah,
and you're not going to be talked about at all if you're there. Like just because.
Would Phil play at ASU?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Oh my god! Just imagine. Or I know I was gonna say Ottawa again, but no, I want to keep going back to that. Well, Bergeron, Boston in retirement. Louis Eriksson is apparently going back to Sweden.
Yeah,
that's a shame. Who cares about Strawman, DeKaiser, DeHaan was a meme. Kadri we talked about. There's the dog. The dog's really going off. I'm surprised that no one signed Zach Aston Reese. I thought he was signed by someone. Or am I thinking of Danton Heinen?
I think you're thinking of Danton Heinen.
A smart team's gonna pick up Zach Aston Reese. The dogs are just going nuts right now.
You know, I think if the Leafs trade Alex Kerfoot, if the Leafs trade Alex Kerfoot, I think that's a guy they should go after.
Tyler Mott, Johan Larson's still out there. Evan Rodriguez is still out there. That's very strange. Keith Yandel, probably. Yeah. Tyler Ennis.
A name you haven't mentioned, and I think it's going to be a very interesting one. And I think at this point, we're kind of waiting for Kadri to sign to see where he goes. But Paul Stastny, 45 points, 21 goals in 71 games last year.
So that's who needs a cheap centerman right now.
Calgary.
That's true. Also, like Tyler Picklick and Sonny Milano could be like bets for someone to take. Like who else? I'm just trying to look at who else just needs I think everyone could use I feel like the Sharks are going to do some move where it's like, what did that really do? And I feel like they could do a move like that. Like why would you get Stastny because you're the Sharks? But I'm gonna sneeze.
Oh
no, it went. You know when you're about to sneeze and it just disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but good names. You guys need to sign. There's still good players out there. A lot of good players out there.
There's a lot of RFAs too, like good ones.
Okay. Would you like to read them?
Yeah, I would, because we haven't been talking about them much this summer. It's like, yeah, whatever. Jason Robertson, Jesper Bratt.
Yeah.
Andrew Mangiapane.
Yeah, like the bread.
Noah Dobson.
Which that's good. I think that's probably done.
Probably.
It's Lou.
It's gotta be. Yeah. Done. I mean, there's still Kyler Yamamoto, and obviously, did we talk about Jesse Puljujarvi resigning that 1 year deal? Like
$3 million. Whatever, he'll get traded eventually.
Yeah. Who else am I missing? I mean, Oliver Shillington.
Primo. Martin Necast.
Oliver Shillington out of Calgary.
Rasmus Sandin.
Kirby Doc.
Yeah, apparently. Oh, I hit my mic. Apparently, the Athletic are writing that's going to be done in either this or next week.
Oh, okay. And this is an interesting one. Sean Durzi.
That's going to be a difficult.
Because he's been pretty important, I'd argue.
He was really good. Defense. He had a really good year. He had a real good coming out year.
He did.
What did he have? 27 points. That's not bad. Just under 20 minutes of ice time playing too.
And just a great guy. I don't know if you've watched that interview that he had on Agent Provocateur.
I have not yet. No, I have not.
I would suggest watching it. It's actually just seems like a genuine guy.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. But yeah, Philip Zadina, Alexander Romanov, Barrett Hayden, Caleb Jones. And then just some other guys in there that are stories for reasons we can't just say. But there are some interesting RFAs out there that we can't quite get into, including Siri. No, leave me alone.
Come on, Siri.
Voice. It was YouTube voice. I don't know why I went on YouTube. This isn't. What are we doing, Adam? Okay. Well, I think that's everything.
I believe so.
I want a next episode. You know what I want to do?
I want to
look at, I'm going to write it down here. I want to look at how many teams are contending versus how many teams are going for Connor Bedard next year. Because the extremes are kind of funny to me.
We need Nazem Kadri to sign because we need to do our off-season rankings.
Yeah, no, that's really bothering me.
We need Mike to come on. We need chaos.
Yeah. And then it's because I think right now, at least, I think the Sens are pole position for champions of the offseason.
Oh,
Nashville could be a threat there. Maybe. Because McDonough and Niederreiter are fine. But I think right now it's the Sens to lose right now.
Honestly, yeah.
And if they bring in Jacob Chicker, and then it's just like holy
the Sens.
Yeah, then but I think it's them right now. Dumpster fires, I think it's fair to say.
Chicago.
Like I think it's like, but here's the thing: they were dumpster fire last year.
Well, they're dumpster fire,
but they somehow got worse.
But they were dumpster fire for a different reason.
They were, yeah. Like the Coyotes. Are they not status quo?
Pretty much.
Unless
we want to put them in dump. Well, we'll have that discussion, but we could put them in dumpster fire because they have no stuff, arena. But
that's true.
We'll have to talk about what the qualifications are.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, because it's like the Habs. Like, listen, like they're not better, but it's like they got the first overall pick and like Lane Hudson and that. It's like on the ice next year they're gonna be just as bad, but it's like but it's gonna be I think it will be the most interesting off-season tier list episode we've done yet. The third annual 2-on-1 podcast off-season tier list.
Have they all been with Mike? Is that why he said
it's a tradition?
Okay. Yes. I didn't know if he was on the first one. I know he was on the second and third one.
Was he on the first one? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'll never forget him making New Jersey the champions of the offseason.
That was so funny.
When we look at it, our champions of the offseason, the Canadians, the cup final. God, they were crap in the regular season. And then the Devils last year. Oh. God, they were crap. So the Sens are either going to make the finals or be complete crap.
Yeah, that's true.
We should actually go back and review how we did last year to see how everything went.
Yeah.
Okay, that's everything. Thank you for listening. My mic never cut out during that episode somehow, so that's nice. But yeah, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Check out YouTube to see our beautiful face. Sorry that we talked about F1 for the first 20 minutes, but we had to. The championships decided because Ferrari threw it away. And we'll see you next time.